started and launch this program. Good afternoon. I'm Gloria Nelson, and I'm with TUG, and we're so glad to have you join us today for our TUG Connects 365 programming. As you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our community of Infor distribution software users. We've all heard that phrase that knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. Today is but one of our many in-depth sessions in our TUG Connect series. TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence, and that is a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do. Before we get started, let me touch base on some housekeeping information. Buckle up for about 40 minutes of content. Drop your questions into the question and answer bubble so that everyone else online can see it. If you like the question, if it's something that you yourself would like to have answered, if you like it, it will populate up to the top. We'll also be monitoring our chat window. And today is going to be very exciting because Tim's session is extremely interactive. As you pose a question, what we would like to do is we would like to unmute you or making a relevant comment to what his content is on a particular slide. We want to unmute you and have you join the conversation, literally from the comfort of your own monitor. So I will be watching that, and also wanted to tell you that you can control the view that you are in. You can either have it in gallery view, speaker view, or side-by-side view, and that control is in your upper right-hand corner. Now, the only other thing that I would like to say is that with all intellectual property, Tim has very graciously given everyone online permission to take screenshots of his content that he's sharing, and also to copy any of the chat history to maximize your learning experience here today. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Tim Plotner, who is back by popular demand from Earnest Associates. Tim, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Gloria. I appreciate that. And welcome, everyone. Gloria, can you see the screen?
You are in our sight lines, and I'm going dark now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all you're doing. See a lot of folks here. Looks like we've got a great group, and many of you have interacted with me a lot over TUG and other areas. So I'm going to be counting on you guys to make sure that you engage with this presentation. The thing we're covering today are three technologies: the API Toolkit, the background processor, and the alerts. Now, these are FACTS specific, as Gloria mentioned. If you happen to be here and you are not a FACTS user, these will not be applicable to you. You shouldn't spend your time on this. It's just not going to be useful. So, but for you FACTS users out there, I need your participation. The purpose of this is not only to understand the capabilities of each of these three tool sets, but and how you would implement them or how you would apply them, but it's also to generate ideas, and it's that idea generation that is important to me and important to your participation here. So as you see, when we go through the presentation, I will be sharing some seed ideas for each of these things, and then I need your feedback to make it actually a much more meaningful experience for everyone. And so if you do have ideas you want to put out there and let us talk about or evaluate, and my purpose in those is to be able to share with you, are those ideas things that would be applicable to the toolkit, to the processor, or to alerts, or none of the above. So when you have those ideas, please put in the chat to Gloria that you have something you'd like to share. We'll be pausing throughout, but don't wait for my pause to put that in the chat window. Go ahead and do it as soon as you have that idea, and then we can talk to it as we move forward. And I do encourage you to not be afraid to speak up and actually talk. There's no bad ideas. It's just let's evaluate these together. So the the disclaimer that I want to put on here, and by the way, let me just say that that comment I just had applies to your channel partners as well as your customers. So if you as a channel partner on here and you have programming experience, please don't hesitate to bring some of your ideas as well. The disclaimer here is that what we're covering, the tool sets that we're covering, and those tool sets again, being the API toolkit, the background processor, and alerts, to set up new instances of those three tools themselves are from Infor. So you have access to them already. The API toolkit is something that's licensed, so you have to purchase it. The background processor and alerts are built into all FACTS systems from the point in time where they were created. They've both been out there for some years, but you do need to make sure that you have the appropriate version of FACTS for some of these. But the content, if you're going to build some of these ideas and make them a reality, do involve you engaging your channel partner to pursue the implementation of those ideas. They can't just be flipped on or flipped off. You need to engage and get those done. So that's my disclaimer. If some of these ideas resonate with you, please be sure you reach out to your channel partner to talk about them. Okay, so to get into the tools, let's first of all talk about the API toolkit. As I mentioned, you have to purchase or license that API toolkit from Infor. So if you don't have it, you need to purchase it. Some of the things the APIs are for are do things like supporting third-party integration. So if you were to use Storefront as an example, Storefront communicates with FACTS by way of APIs. So it consumes, that's the term we use there for an API, the APIs that are defined in FACTS. If you create new APIs, some external product is likely going to be consuming those APIs. Now, when I say consuming them, that means accessing them and either retrieving data from it, if it's a data retrieval type API, or asking FACTS to do something or execute some procedure, if that's what the purpose of the API is for. There are some internal uses, so those are less relevant maybe to what we're doing here. When I say internal uses, I mean there are some APIs that FACTS produces and consumes both, or it does both sides of it. It makes them available and it uses it. So an example of that is the sales analysis post. When things are posting out of the daily sales register to sales analysis, the register, DSR, is consuming internal APIs to load the data into sales analysis. I also will point out to you that APIs are full security controlled. So you have the ability to limit who can access an API, assign which companies they can access that API for, if you have multiple FACTS companies, and keep close access to that. If you can change passwords so they can't get access to it, etc. So the API toolkit usually means you're going to be asking FACTS to return some kind of information to you. Give me a list of all the open orders for a customer, as an example, or you're asking FACTS to do something for you. Like I am a third-party storefront and I want FACTS to create a sales order. There is an API that can be accessed that will create a sales order for you in FACTS. So that's the API. The background processor essentially is used to automate processes in a number of ways, but first of all, within FACTS. So if you remember many years ago, if you wanted to rebuild sort files, or if you wanted to delete past invoices older than 7 years, or whatever you wanted to do, to purge empty serial numbers, those kind of things, you had to actually go schedule a time to go run the program, and you would make that happen. Well, we introduced a background process that automates those things. So you can say how many months you want to keep of each of these types of things, and the background processor runs on a scheduled timer and purges that data for you without you having to do it yourself. So automating processes within FACTS is something that the background process does. often a background processor will be out looking for a condition or lack of activity, finding that situation and doing something as a result of it. Okay. So, for example, a background processor might go look at all of your sales orders that have had no activity on it that are still open and have been open for longer than a year. Okay, and it would then do something with that, generate a list of them, send some information. It might look for other situations like, well, no one has done a particular task, and we're going to go through some of these ideas in a moment. And when it finds it, it's going to do something. So it's actually going and mining, if you will, information within FACTS, looking for a condition that you want to know about or do something about. Performing maintenance tasks is similar to what I mentioned earlier with cleaning up data. See, you can use for non-FACTS tasks also. Let me just give you an example of a non-FACTS task. You wanted to clean up temporary files in a directory on your server. You could write a background process that was kicked off at a particular instance, and you could have that process go find temporary files in a specific directory and clean them out. Lots of different ways that you can utilize the background processor. The processor scheduling mechanism, you have a lot of different options for which you can schedule them, how frequently you want to kick them off, and whether they run continuously. Some of them run all the time. And you can have that run for specific companies versus or all companies, FACTS companies. Alerts, so that's the background process. Now alerts are usually initiated by something else. So some program, either a background process or some activity in FACTS, like running the daily sales register or running the PO receipt register, you would look for specific things that happen in that. So for example, if we have some alerts that are tied to the replenishment engine. So when a PO receipt is received and it's beyond a certain limit, it could generate an alert to a user to go see something. Excuse me. The alerts are really when only a notification is needed. In other words, you don't need to take action. Whereas with a background process, you generally need to do more than just get a notification. You need to take some action, or it's something that is not already in a program in FACTS, like the PO receipt register as an example. The notifications of alerts can take two forms. Either an email is generated to any list of people, or the exception control center, and there's also the alert control center, the ACC, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So these alerts can be delivered in any of those three ways. The alert control center, exception control center are used for you to be able to go into FACTS and see your alerts, clear your alerts, react to your alerts, whereas an email, of course, is just a static email that comes to your email address. Alerts are what we call self-clearing. In other words, if the condition on which the alert was raised is no longer applicable, it can automatically delete the alert, so you're not looking at irrelevant or non-actionable items in your alert system. Now, obviously, that self-clearing only applies to the exception control center or alert control center, not to emails. We can't actually recall an email, but in the ACC, it automatically gets rid of things that aren't there. So I want to pause for just a second and see if we have any feedback or questions on these three tools from a general perspective of what they do and how they're used. So,
yes.
Great.
Paula Tyndall has been communicating with me behind the scenes. Paula, I've gone ahead and unmuted you. And if you would like to jump on and chat and pose that question to Tim, that would be wonderful.
Excellent. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Tim. My question is about a background process and if that feature could be used to terminate fax sessions, perhaps after hours, something like that.
There are some options there, absolutely, because what happens with the sessions that are on in FACTS is you have a process ID. So we know the process ID of that session. Now, there are some risks associated with that, but you could have it automatically kick users out. You could have it use the user management system to say, all right, I want to automatically give a free pass to these people and then kick the other ones out of the company. Lots of different things. And then you could have another background processor enable it later. Yeah, you could do that. Now, the limitations there are you wouldn't necessarily do this if what you're intending was at the point in time where you want to run some process like the DSR. That's when I want to kick everybody out, okay? This would be something that was scheduled that said every night at 11 o'clock, go kick everyone out. Does that make sense, Paula?
Yeah, so I think it is kind of along those lines of getting that daily sales register automated as well.
Okay.
And so, so as not to, prevent that from running, just
Sure.
removing those fax sessions and terminating those users prior to, the draw stream or the automation of the daily sales register.
Awesome. So let me ask you real quickly, in what you're looking for, what version of FACTS are you on?
7.8.
7.8. You should have at 7.8 what we call the user management suite. And you might not have been exposed to that, but the user management suite allows you to go in at a specific time and say, I want to kick everybody off except for me. Okay. And it will actually harass those users. If they're sitting in a menu, it'll terminate them, get them out. But if they're actually working, it's going to give them harassment messages until they get out. And at that point, you also have the ability to see which process ID they are. And there are some options that have been added. I don't know if they're customizations or not, where you can actually kill that process from the user management screen. So that's something you might want to look at.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll definitely take a look at that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Paula,
and thanks for question.
Oh, sorry, Tim. I didn't
No,
mean
go
to
ahead.
step on your verbal toes. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to turn off Paula's camera, or excuse me, microphone, and I'm going to unmute Jill because she has a question for you.
Sweet. Hi, Jill.
Jill, if you can go ahead and unmute. It says I need to ask you to unmute on your side. Whoops, excuse me. There we go.
Oh, almost had it there.
Let's try it again.
There we go. Hi,
Okay.
Jill. Can you?
Hi. I can hear you.
Excellent. We can hear you.
Good. Just a quick question. So I have my quote set to remove 12 months or 18 months or whatever, and it's obviously performing that every month in the background processes.
Yep.
But the old way that I could do it was I would just go in and sort of choose a range. And I like to export all of my quotes into a big Excel spreadsheet before they get deleted out of FACTS. I know that's probably a bad practice because I have them in a million places, but makes for good, easy reference if I have to go way back.
Sure.
But now it's not so easy to do that with them being removed monthly. Is there a way to set up the background process? I mean, could I do that so it's only doing it every 6 months or
you can
every
change
year?
the frequency, but the frequency doesn't allow for semi-annually. That's not something that's there automatically. There is the ability to, if you wanted to do a modification, have a modification to that. We've done modifications to the frequency to allow run it every 15 minutes, run it every 30 minutes, etc. It's not that complicated, but you could have a modification that said only run it every 6 months, as an example. Now, it is possible, though, to adjust that specific background task, this removing quotes, to potentially, before it removes it, to somehow archive it in some way. So that could be also another modification you could consider. So either changing it to have a semi-annual frequency, or put something in place that allows you to specify or put a way to save it or archive it automatically before it deletes it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Those are a couple ideas. But yeah, I have heard that before, Jill. It's not been an uncommon thing, especially concerning quotes. So.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. Great. Anything else, Gloria?
No, you can go ahead and proceed on with your
All
next
right.
slide. Thanks, Tim.
Very good. Okay, so my goal now is to go through, I'm going to present some ideas and explain to you which of the 3 tools would be used to generate or to make that happen. And these are just random ideas that came out of my head that I put in place here. And this is where if this triggers some additional thought on your side, I want to hear that and let's talk about it. But the thing that I came up with was a customer has more than $1,000 that goes past due. Now, what I'm specifically referring to here is the day after, if you will, or the night after they go past due on that $1,000. I want to know about it right then. I don't want to wait till someone runs a report and sees it, but I'm looking for customers that are newly more than $1,000 past due. Okay. Well, that's something that there's not a report in FACTS to get. You can't run a report that says, show me anyone who went past due last night. Okay. But you could write a background process. A background process could be created that said, as soon as a customer reaches $1,000 past due, I want to automatically put the account on hold, send an email to the account rep, and put all open documents on hold. Now, I may not do all 3 of those things. This is just an example. You could do some of it, not all of it. You could just do an email. You could just put the account on hold and leave the open documents. But if the open documents, and specifically I was referring to documents that had not been filled yet, put all those on hold and then optionally send an alert. So that's an example of something that would be appropriate for the background processor to do. Now, the background processor could generate an email to the account rep itself. Now, optionally, you could say, well, instead of just generating an email to the account rep, let me instead generate an alert. Now, this is where I want to explain a little bit about alerts that will help you understand the difference between just sending an email to the account rep versus generating an alert. And to do that, I want to show you this screen. So this is the system alerts dashboard. And this is in FACTS 9.2, this happens to be there. And I've pulled up the standard default alerts. And any alert that gets set up gets an ID or alert code, which is this, it has a description. And when an alert gets generated, it just gets put out there for whoever happens to have subscribed to it. So in other words, the alert I can't force it to go to somebody. It's going to be out there for anyone who cares about that alert to say, I want to see it. And they get to pick whether or not they want it to come to them via email or to the alert control center, either one. Now, the way they do that, just so you can see, if I go in here and go to manage subscriptions, by the way, we get to this screen from the user preferences menu on the FACTS side. So when I'm in FACTS, I go up to the my user preferences, and I get to a thing called My Alerts. When I go to My Alerts, this is where it takes me. So when I go to manage subscriptions, you'll notice here that it is going to tell me I can subscribe to this alert multiple times. Okay. So this would be my full list of alerts that I'm subscribed to. If I create a subscription, that's what the plus would do here. Create a subscription. I can say, I want to see anytime this is true for any customer, all customers, or specific customers. So I could say, for instance, C100. And, oh, sorry, I'm working in some custom data here. So let's just pick I better not go through this because I'm working in some custom data. But you'd select the customer you want to, and when you say okay, it will add the alert here on the screen for you, and you can see which customers and ship tos you've subscribed to. So that means that whenever this alert gets raised, it knows which customer and ship to, and anybody who's subscribed to a matching customer or ship to will get either their alert email or the alert control center notification, either or both. You notice here it comes up subscribing to both. Right clicking on that alert, you can change it to go to email or to alert control center only, or both. So that's the important thing to note. The difference there is that the users themselves control who gets an alert, and they control how they receive the alert. If you went with an email, the background processor itself would be the thing generating the email, and it would rely on things like looking at the salesperson on there, figuring out what their email address is and sending that email to them. If you were using this method and you wanted to also copy the sales manager, the manager of that sales rep, you would have to put it in the alert to say go also to that the supervisor, the manager, the sales manager. Whereas with an alert, they get to go in and say which ones they want to see. So that, I want to put that on the screen there. We've gone through a little bit of the ideas. Any of you guys have any thoughts about this idea or anything similar that you would like to talk about that might be something you'd like to see? Gloria, do we have any takers?
Tim, I'm not seeing anything populating thus far on this slide. And I just want to encourage everybody, as I've dropped into chat, please make sure that you open your chat window so that I can communicate with you any additional information. And also it's a way to pop in and let us know that you want to come on and talk to us.
Excellent.
So go ahead. Next slide, Tim.
All right, absolutely. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. And now we can always revisit these when we come back. So don't think when we moved on that we moved on for good. So here's a second thing, a second scenario. If an account is on hold, so that the customer's account is already on hold, on credit hold, but because they've paid some things, they ended up not being over their credit limit and not past due on anything, let me just go ahead and send an email to the account rep saying, hey, this customer might need to be released from hold, or alternatively, go ahead and release the hold and send an email to the account rep. So that's an example of another thing that would be a background processor. And it's a background processor because you're looking for a circumstance that took place. This is they're not over the credit limit and they're not past due, but they are on hold, okay? And in that situation, I want to take an action. I want to do something. I'm not just telling them, I want to do something. So if it was just an alert, I could look for this situation for an alert, but I would have to have either a background processor to find the situation, or I could put it into the code that does the payment receipts, the cash and credit application. And as soon as I apply a payment from a customer that brings them under their credit limit, I could generate an alert to anyone who cares. Versus a background processor that's going to push an email and potentially remove that account from hold. Again, you could do any combination of these things, or you could expand it in other ways. Does that resonate with anybody?
Tim, sorry about that. We have Tim Monroe who has popped into the Q&A bubble. Tim, I would send you a quick text message, but I don't want to belabor this. So I'm going to ask a question for you, but hit me with a chat message either to the panelists or privately and let me know if you want to come on and talk at any time so I can unmute you going forward. Tim's question is this: how to be alerted to customers whose 3-month sales average dropped below a prior threshold of sales?
Excellent, good question. That's a great idea. That also would be appropriate for a background process to be created. So, and probably an alert. So you would be doing both of those. So your background process would be the thing that ran at night that would go look at each account, calculate the 3-month average, calculate and compare it to the other metric, whatever that was going to be. And then if the condition became applicable, you would raise an alert. And that alert would then, of course, be able to be subscribed to. And that actually ends up bringing it up another interesting point about alerts, which I will, I'm not going to pull it up on the screen to show you, but when you define an alert, you get to define what they call a re-raise interval. So when that first condition happens on Monday night, and you need to get an alert and notified of it. Okay, the email goes out, the alert gets generated, etc. Well, you don't necessarily want to hear about that every day for the next 2 weeks because the condition still exists. You only want to hear about it the first time. So the re-raise interval says, I'm going to look for the condition. If that is still true a day later, if that's beyond, that's within or it hasn't reached the re-raise interval, which would be a number of days, I could say the re-raise interval is 2 weeks, for example. It first happens on Monday, it's not going to generate another alert from me for that same situation until 2 weeks later. And if 2 weeks later, this condition still exists, it'll raise the alert again for the user. So that's another interesting thing, Tim. But yeah, perfect example of implementation of a background process and an alert in order to accomplish that. Thank you, Gloria. Was there anything else?
That's it for now. Go ahead and take it away
Awesome.
again.
All right. So moving on, I've sort of characterized these in different areas. Again, talking about ideas, and my purpose again in bringing these ideas to you is sometimes the biggest obstacle that you or your partner has is knowing what you can do, what is possible, what questions could I answer if I asked the question. And so what my goal here is to help you think through, oh man, here's something that I've needed. I didn't know it would be reasonably simple for me to implement that in FACTS. Okay. If you know what these tools are capable of doing, all of a sudden you have the ability to say, all right, to your channel partner, here's what I want done. And can you get a programmer to create a background process or an alert or an API to do these things? Okay, the tools are there, and it's just a matter of having the imagination to say, I should ask for this, all right, and it's possible to do. So here's a couple of other emails, and this is similar to the one that Paula asked earlier. But send an email to everyone who is currently logged in, and also send the full list of that group of people that are logged in to an administrator. So if you have problems with people staying logged in overnight, and you've told them that you want them out overnight because of backups or whatever, you could create a background processor that ran at 11 o'clock p.m. and any user that was still logged on at 11 p.m. would get an email, and you would get a consolidated list in an email to an administrator. That could be a background processor running automatically every night at 11, as an example. Retrieve shipping and tracking information on a drop ship order and send a HTML email to the customer with the details. So you could automate this if you have a shipping interface for some purpose, and you want to send an email with tracking numbers to your customers. You don't have to do that manually. You could have a background processor created that went through and said, what are all the items that ship today? If I can get a tracking information, let me get it. Let me automatically send an email to the customer with the details. So that's something a background processor could do. Update an external website with changes to pricing and new items. So here's an example of where instead of the website calling in and asking FACTS for updated pricing, you could have FACTS each night generate a push to the email of the pricing values. Now that's if you're not using an integrated website already, but just an example of how you can do that. You could also do things like generate a list of all of the pricing and every once a quarter, and email it to all the custom pricing, like contracts, for example, and email it to the salesperson that's relevant for that, so they can see all those things. There's lots of different ways that you can have a background processor generate information and push it out of FACTS. Any other ideas that you guys have for that? And do you get now the difference between what a background processor would be appropriate for versus an alert? Any thoughts on those?
Hi, Tim. This is Jill again.
Hi, Jill.
Hi. So that first example you gave with like an email with a dollar amount that the customer was past due, could you
Yes.
do that same thing with just the days past due? Like anybody who goes more than 10 days past their terms, it wouldn't have to be a specific dollar amount?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I'm getting this.
All right, and that again is a background processor. It could be an alert if you wanted people to subscribe to it themselves, but you would have to have the background processor to generate the or look for the situation of them being, past their terms. Yep.
And Tim, nothing else is populated in chat thus far, but Jill did put something out to the online community that's joined us today. She
Okay.
says, I love these ideas and would like to see a session at the TUG Connects 2021 program, either a brainstorming session for new ideas or hearing what people have done. So, feel free to jump in and share where you would like to see the FACTS community move forward in terms of our online 365 content. And as we begin to build our agenda for the 2021 program. So
Excellent.
I'm gonna hit it back to you, Tim.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's pivot over to API ideas. Now, we've talked a lot about background processor, but APIs they might be less, I don't know what the right word is. They might be less used, less often used, because generally speaking, with an API, you're talking about another external product needing to get access to FACTS data or information or execute FACTS logic, business logic. So these, for example, are a couple of ideas that are these ideas here are only retrieving data. So you've got an application that you want to go pull out of FACTS some information, okay? And now, let me just also say, though, that you could have an API like this that can be accessed by an external company or external product, but you could also build a background process that used these APIs to pull that information in as well. So an API, like I mentioned earlier, can be consumed externally, or it can be consumed internally. If you had a background process that wanted to send the results of these API calls to someone, you could have the background processor execute the API, get the results, and then send those results to someone. So here's an example, a couple of examples. Give me a list of all open orders for a salesperson. It's very simple. I just want to know as a salesperson, hey, at the end of the night, I want to get a list of all of my open orders. So let's say you had a CRM product sitting out there and the salesperson wanted to be able to click a button and see a list of all their open orders that are in FACTS. Now, you might use the CRM might actually just automatically access that API and pull those open orders in. But if you didn't have it that tightly integrated, you just wanted to click a button, that button could generate an API call giving FACTS the company and the salesperson, and it would send back in an XML file to the CRM the list of open orders for that salesperson. A list of all open orders with price overrides. Oh, sorry, accidentally clicked that. So you want to know where price overrides are taking place. If you built an API that would just go find all the price overrides, return your whole list to you. List of all open orders where the terms code is not the customer's default terms code. So someone changed the terms code on an order. Now, each one of these, you could do other ways if you wanted them internally to FACTS. So for example, list of all open orders with price overrides. You could go into the actual order entry program, and when they saved a document with a price override on it, generate an alert. And then people could subscribe to that alert. They could see every time someone created a price override, they would get an alert, either an email or something else. The list of all open orders or terms code is not the default. You could also do this in sales order entry. You could have a modification that said, as soon as they save the document with a terms code that is not the default terms code, generate an alert. So where the API comes into place is if you need to get that information from some external system. External system needs to get it from FACTS, I'm sorry, versus you within FACTS just need to know about it. So that's some ideas for APIs. There's probably, this is where probably the most complex opportunities exist for writing APIs. And at the end of the presentation here, I'm going to talk about some other complex things that I know have been done with APIs. But does that resonate with anyone? Anybody have any ideas or questions about what they might be able to use APIs for?
I am not seeing anything populating thus far, Tim.
Sounds good. All right, and we'll move on to a couple of alerts, and I've pulled these out on individual screens, so we can sort of talk to them a little bit different. So how about an alert when an invoice is reprinted? So invoice is printed once and they reprint that invoice, and I want to know that someone reprinted an invoice. So what that would involve is going into the invoice print program, and as soon as it showed that it was in a reprint, you would simply generate the alert. Now the alert, if you recall, when I mentioned that when you can subscribe to an alert, if you remember, we came in here and I had hit the plus, and it gave me an option for customer and ship to. Well, you could, which things are subscribable are controlled by you when you set up the alert, when you create the alert. So you could say, I want to subscribe based on primary, inside, customer, or customer class. So what that means is if the invoice was reprinted for this salesperson or this inside salesperson, okay, then I want to be able to subscribe based on that. I want to subscribe based on if it's a certain customer or group of customers or class of customers. And there could be, you could pick any of the values that are present on that invoice header to say, I want to subscribe. The subscription values, you have up to 6 of them. So you could have 6 different things present that they could use to subscribe in the alert, if that makes sense. So that was one idea. Next idea I had here was, what about when someone edits an order? Okay, and you could make this even editing a printed order, or and all you want to know is that that happened. Okay, well, you could build an alert that said as soon as someone pulls up an existing order and edits it, generate an alert, and you can subscribe to it based on who it was that was editing the order. So hey, anytime Jane makes a change to an order, I want to know it. Jane doesn't know necessarily that you have created this alert, but you could create that and you could subscribe to it. When the order is for a specific customer or salesperson, you can subscribe on those scenarios. So does that make sense? The subscription part, is there any confusion as about what that means? Subscribe by? Do we have any or any other ideas about alerts, or does this kick off any ideas? Go ahead.
Tim, I don't know that this applies to that direct query you just made, but Paula, if you want to jump back on your microphone, she has a question that she posed right after you started to roll on this slide.
Sure. Go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, hi, Tim. Sorry if it doesn't apply here, but my question is there any use of either a background processor or API to send external communications to customers, say at the change of a status of the order? You know, it's been picked, yeah. It's been confirmed, it's been shipped.
Absolutely, 100%. Perfect example of what you might want to do. In that situation, probably the only complexity of sending it to an external receiver is knowing the email address that you want to send it to. So you'd have to have a way to know that, all right, for this customer, it's the contact one email address or contact two email address or some other way of knowing who it is you're sending that alert to. But yes, you can, it wouldn't in this case be an alert, that would be a background process that would do it. So you would have a background process. If you notice when we went through this, let me go back to this one. We're sending an email to the account rep. That email can go to anybody as long as you can determine which email address it should go to for that account.
So if we stored, and maybe some user-defined fields in the,
Correct, absolutely.
File maintenance or something, we could identify, where to send those specific types of
Documents.
communications.
Absolutely. Yep. Great idea.
Tim, I don't have any other questions right now, but I do want to give you a heads up. We are at the 14-minute remaining mark.
Yep, I saw that and it was starting to give me a little bit of heartburn. But we'll get through here. We'll get through here, I promise you. Okay. So alert when someone edits, deletes, or creates a record in a file maintenance. Okay, there's a lot of logging that takes place already and in the audit, FM audit, but you could actually have an alert that gets generated that when someone edits a record, it sends the alert, and you could subscribe by say which file maintenance it was, or which user it was that was making the change. Some examples there. Then we move into more complex things. These are mainly approached for APIs and things like that that are complex. So these are some things that we've done at ENA. I'm not going to get into the details of these other than just to say that these tools can be used to do highly complex things like interfaces to the freight rate shopping or e-commerce interfaces. We actually have one that will create a temporary order in FACTS and then attempts to do the order load to load it. And if it doesn't work, it leaves it as a temporary order with an interface to review and resubmit the order. There's background processors that check third-party software for confirmation of an order that was shipped and automatically does order confirmation in FACTS, things like that. So a lot of capabilities that you have there, and I'm happy to field any questions or other ideas. I appreciate very much the feedback and the participation. I hope that it spurred a couple of thoughts and ideas in your minds. But now I'd like to open it to final questions and see, Gloria, if we have anything else. We can't hear you, Gloria. You're muted.
Fortunately, it comes across with a blazing warning that says you are muted on my screen. I don't see anything that's populated right now in the finality of the program, but I do want to give it a couple of other minutes. Tim, you've been so engaged with regard to being an instructor at all of our TUG events and even in our TUG 365 community here. What are you looking forward to seeing happen within the FACTS community at TUG Connects 2021?
I really think it's time that the folks that are remaining on FACTS and love it and want to stay with it engage more effectively with each other and with their channel partners to find ways to keep it alive and keep it growing and moving forward for them, solving their problems that they have. The software tools, and that's really the goal of these tools that we just covered, was to give FACTS legs for the future, because you can build all kinds of things utilizing the tools. Sometimes if these tools weren't here, doing these kind of things would be very cumbersome and difficult and costly. With the fact that the tools are here, really all we're lacking is the ideas. What do you want to see happen? And it's much easier to accomplish them than it would have been without the tools being present. So I think the engagement, the networking, the sharing of solutions is going to become more and more important for the FACTS community.
Agree. And that's where the forum boards are so important in engagement, because it's a quick way that you can literally post something, get a relevant answer to a perplexing problem that you might be having with the platform, looking for a workaround, want to see something else in terms of educational content pop up. And one of the things that I can honestly say as a meeting and conference and event planner for more decades than I would like to admit. My own industry associations that I belong to with regard to getting engaged do a number of things. Number one, it sharpens my sword with regard to the tool belt that I have, as it does yours, everyone that's viewing and on a platform. The other thing that it does is it allows me to build those relationships, go to people, tried and true individuals that I know that are working in the same vein, that have the same values, that have the same struggles, etc. So helpful. And the other thing is that when you step up and get a little bit involved, whether you want to kind of dip your toe in the water and say, hey, I might be interested in sitting in on a network leaders meeting, or get involved in a committee when it comes to the planning processes of, say, for example, our live event. The one thing that I have heard more and more and more from everyone now that has filtered up to the board level, not that everyone needs to aspire to that, mind you, is that, wow, what I have come away with in this membership is far more than what is offered in just my platform. It gives you an opportunity to present a session. It gives you an opportunity to flex leadership muscles and get additional training that serves you within your own organization and even beyond those walls. So make sure that you avail those forums. And Tim, I haven't seen anything else populate. So without any further ado, I'm gonna. Whoop,
Tim,
yes.
I have one more thing, Gloria. It's Jill again, of course.
Jill, go ahead.
So back to the APIs.
Yes.
You suggested one maybe where you could get an alert if anybody did a price override. And you also said maybe if anybody changes terms. Are all of those separate, or can you just do one API for orders that says, tell me when this, and this happen, or if any of these conditions happen?
So in the situation you mentioned, it would probably be a background processor, not the API.
Okay.
Mainly because the API would be as if you needed an external product to find that out, versus you getting an alert or a notification that happened. So it would be a background process, and you could combine all of the different changes that you were interested in on an order in order to and generate one alert with all of them. Now, the caveat I'll put on that is if you're doing header versus line, so like the price override is a line change, whereas the header, the terms is a header change. You have to be a little careful on how it was written so that you found the right information, all right set of information. You might be getting one alert on the header, and then, well, one alert, but in the alert you would have one header notification and maybe multiple lines that were out there. So, but you could do that absolutely in a single background processor with a single alert to generate that information.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense? And did
Yes,
that
it
answer your
does.
question, Jill?
It does. Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Wonderful. Not a question, a comment. Tim and Rose shares. Just wanted to say thank you so much, Tim. Big help to longtime FACTS users planning future developments. A lot in the FACTS that way that we may not have been exposed to or may have forgotten. So a big thank you to you. And
Excellent.
We're delighted, Tim, that you're here, that you're stimulating the conversation.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
The other thing that I just want to make mention of is this FACTS community is just so engaged. We see such a high level of participation. So thank you to everyone that has joined us today. Tim, thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge. As with most all of our webinars, this presentation will be available on our TUG website for future reference and posted to the appropriate forum board, your FACTS community, with the link for viewing on the next business day. So that will be no later than Monday. We'd like to invite those of you who are members of TUG to make sure that you jump back on those forum boards and keep that discussion from today going. And our next webinars will take place after the Thanksgiving holiday week. So watch your inbox and make sure that if you're interested that you jump on to the 2 o'clock program today. Infor is going to be talking about IDM, and we're also going to have an update on the roadmap. So for all of you who are not yet members, please visit www.theusergroup.org and join today. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.
Thank you.